The Comorian army regains control of Mutsamudu's old city center, ending 6 days of violent clashes with armed men, an uprising against President Azali Assoumani. The archipelago hadn't experienced such unrest since 1997, when the island of Anjouan declared unilateral independence. The separatist insurgency led to a revolving presidency system between the Comoros' three islands, Grande Comore, Moheli and Anjouan. Based on this rule, Anjouan Island was next in line for its turn at the presidency. But a widely criticized referendum in July allowed President Assoumani to scrap this revolving presidency system.
It's a spontaneous uprising of people who are fed up with what is happening. The inhabitants of Anjouan were expecting the president-elect in 2021 to come from their island and run the country for the following 5 years.
The referendum technically allows former coup leader Azali Assoumani to remain in power for 10 more years. There are also rising concerns of arbitrary arrests and detention, declining freedoms and human rights abuses. Demonstrations have been banned, MPs' powers reduced and the Constitutional Court suspended. Opposition leaders are accusing Azali Assoumani of trying to establish a dictatorship.
What is a dictatorship? It's the loss of our rights and liberties, individual and collective freedom, freedom of peaceful assembly, freedom of speech. What we are seeing now is a tragic first for the Comoro Islands. It's true, some dictatorships are more brutal, but they all start like this.
After the referendum, the headquarters of the main opposition party, Juwa, were shut down. Dozens of its members are being detained in the island nation's only prison.
These people are thrown into jail in conditions that violate basic human rights. They are 10 people in a cell that is built for 3. They sleep on the ground, on straw mats, not even mattresses, surrounded by tons of cockroaches and rats. It's unhygienic. They don't have toilets. They all share one bucket to relieve themselves in the middle of the cell.
Former President Ahmed Abdallah Sambi is also among these prisoners. Just before his arrest, he had publicly criticized Azali Assoumani. He's been formally charged with corruption and the embezzlement of public funds in connection with a scheme to sell his country's passports to stateless persons. His house in Waju has been turned into a heavily guarded prison. His lawyer is the only person allowed to see him, but he can't talk freely with his client. He deplores what he calls partial justice.
Dans son discours, au moment où il est arrivé, il a dit ceci, je le cite.
When he came back to Moroni, he gave a speech and said, I quote, "I do not fear justice, but I fear injustice. As of today, unfortunately, I haven't received any proof that he's committed any of the offences of which he is accused."
The government denies any attempt to muzzle the opposition. For the Foreign Affairs Minister, there's no doubt the former head of state is guilty.
Money has been embezzled. We're talking about several billion.
During our interview, he insisted the government has solid proof.
You want proof? You want to see evidence? Okay, stay a bit longer in our country and we'll give you our proof.
Evidence that he never provided, despite our repeated requests. This crackdown is also affecting the press and media. 20 radio channels have been shut down. Some journalists now find themselves without a job. Others have been fired because of government pressure. At Al Watwan, a state-owned newspaper, Ahmed Ali Amir has been sacked from his position as director.
Al Watwan gave column inches to all political parties, and they didn't like that. We were constantly reminded that our newspaper was financed by the state. and that because of that, we should agree with the government. We replied that it's exactly because we're funded by the state that we should be free to publish all opinions. It's taxpayers' money after all.
Civil society hasn't been spared either. Comoran writer Said Ahmed Said Turki is being held in solitary confinement. He's accused of conspiracy against the state.
They blame him for being the mastermind of a network that wanted to bring down the president. But he's just a writer. He's not in the military. He's not the kind of person who can organize an attack or a military coup. They say they have proof, but they didn't find any illegal weapons in his house.
Azali Assoumani will stand for re-election in 2019. He has announced snap elections will be held during the first semester. Meanwhile, he's trying to push a law that would allow him to legislate by decree, paving the way to extend his rule.